Today's question: my project is 50% done, but 80% budget spent. Am I screwed? By the end, you'll be able to apply earned value management formulas to calculate your project's true financial status and forecast the final required budget. PM Panda here. 2.5 decades delivering projects, PMP certified since 2003. The mistake I'm about to show you is how budgets really die. I have watched good managers crash projects because they tracked the wrong numbers while thinking they were perfectly safe. Ever had your finance team panic because your project burned through 80% of its budget early? Imagine you are building a new software platform or a regional hospital wing, and you look at your schedule and see you are exactly halfway through your deliverables. 50% complete feels like a win until you look at the bank account and realize 80% of the cash is gone. Panic sets in as you wonder if you are officially screwed or if you can still pull this off. You need a way to prove exactly where the bleeding is coming from before you declare bankruptcy. Today, we are diving into earned value management to diagnose a bleeding budget and forecast if your project can still survive. To diagnose this mess, we first need to establish what I call the baseline truth using 3 specific numbers. First is planned value, or PV, which is simply the approved budget for the work you intended to have finished by this date. Next is earned value, or EV, which is the budgeted value of the work you actually completed. Essentially, what is that 50% progress worth in real dollars? Finally, we have actual cost, or AC, which is the cold, hard cash you have actually spent according to your invoices. If you are 50% done, your EV is exactly half of your total budget. But if you have spent 80%, your AC is significantly higher. You cannot manage what you do not measure accurately against these 3 pillars. Once we have those numbers, we calculate the actual bleed using cost variance and the cost performance index. Cost variance, or CV, is calculated by subtracting your actual cost from your earned value to give you an absolute dollar amount of your overspend. A negative number here is a giant red flag that you are spending more than the value you are creating. Even more critical is the cost performance index, or CPI, which you find by dividing earned value by actual cost. This index tells you your spending efficiency in a single ratio. If your CPI is less than 1.0, you are losing money on every single dollar spent, and your project is effectively a leaky bucket. Now we have to look into the future using the estimate at completion, or EAC. This formula uses your current efficiency, that CPI we just calculated, to forecast the total expected cost of the project when everything is finally done. You calculate this by taking your total budget at completion and dividing it by your current CPI. This isn't just a guess, it is a mathematical proof that shows the board exactly how much more money they need to cough up if things don't change. I once managed a hospital build where rapid task completion masked massive overtime contractor costs. By the time we ran the EAC, it was clear we were headed for a disaster that no amount of working harder could fix without a budget increase. Let's walk through a real-world scenario with actual numbers so you can see the math in action. Imagine a global construction firm building a new commercial hospital wing with a total project budget of $1 million. At the 6-month mark, the team has completed exactly 50% of the physical work, meaning your earned value is $500,000. However, your finance department reports that the actual cost is already $800,000. To find your efficiency, you divide $500,000 by $800,000, giving you a CPI of 0.625. This means for every dollar the company spends, they are only getting 62.5 cents of actual value back. If we take that hospital scenario to its logical conclusion using the estimate at completion formula, the news gets even worse. You take your $1 million original budget and divide it by that 0.625 efficiency rating, which gives you a final forecasted bill of $1,600,000. Yes, you are in deep trouble because you now need an additional $600,000 just to finish what you started. In my experience, ignoring bad CPI metrics like these early on is a guaranteed way to lead a project into total bankruptcy. You cannot hide from the math, and the sooner you present these numbers, the sooner you can start making the hard decisions required to save the mission. Here is what most people get wrong after 25 years of me watching this play out in the trenches. The biggest mistake is using planned value to measure your progress instead of earned value. You cannot just compare what you spent to what you plan to spend. You must compare what you spent to the actual value of the physical work you built. Another fatal error is assuming the burn rate will magically fix itself without intervention. If your CPI is 0.62 at the halfway mark, the math proves you will run out of money unless you drastically slash your scope or replace expensive resources immediately. These concepts are heavily tested in professional certification exams because they are the difference between a pro and an amateur. To wrap this up, remember that earned value is the only true measure of work performed against your budget. A cost performance index under 1.0 means you are highly inefficient and bleeding cash every single day. Finally, use the estimate at completion to accurately forecast your final bill so there are no nasty surprises for your stakeholders. Your actionable next step for tomorrow morning is to pull your current project's actual cost and earned value and calculate your CPI to see if you are secretly losing money. If this breakdown helped you make sense of the madness, hit like so I know to make more. Subscribe if you want practitioner lessons every week.